Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Caesar Carino, your host, and today we have two very special guests, special in a lot of ways, but particularly because they were a part of the 250th or the 200th anniversary. I'll get this right. The 250th anniversary is going to be in 2064. This was in 2014, and they actually did something which was unique. They had students who were historians on the street in Wadsworth. We have Pam Saki and Debbie Lake, and we're going to point them out. The number one over here is Pam Saki, and the other one is Debbie Lake. So we have the two of them, and we're going to have them tell us a little bit about themselves. Pam, how about you starting? Where were you born? Where you live? What do you do? Where'd you go to school? All those kinds of things in 3 seconds.
Okay. I was born and raised in Norton, well, born in Akron, raised in Norton, and then moved to Wadsworth after we had our first child. Married, have 2 children. One just graduated from high school a couple of days ago, and the second one will graduate next year. Went to the University of Akron, majored in education and drama, specifically English education. And I've been working at Wadsworth High School for 23 years. 23
years, starting
Yes.
when you were 10.
Exactly, yes.
Now, you say that you were in Norton. And where did you live in Norton? I was the principal in Norton for a long time.
Good old Loyal Oak. I grew
Loyal
up
Oak.
on Givens Drive.
Givens Drive.
Mr. Bell, which would have been the Porchowski's grandfather,
Right.
was my principal.
He's gone now, unfortunately. Art Bell was the best man at my wedding.
Oh, yep, loved Mr. Bell.
And you lived on Givens Drive, and the person whose family name gave the drive its name was my secretary.
Really? Yeah.
Wow.
Small world.
So, a small world indeed. Right. And you said that you went to the University of Akron. When did you graduate from high school? When did you graduate from the University of Akron?
I graduated from high school in 1980 and graduated from the University of Akron in 1992.
92. Okay.
And in between there, I was a paramedic and a firefighter and tried some other things
And
before I decided I wanted to be a teacher.
A teacher, and a good one at that. Everyone
Thank you.
talks about you. We have seen a lot of your productions. As a matter of fact, I missed them this year because I had some other things that interfered, but I always try to go to your productions, and we enjoy them immensely. Debbie, how about you? Where were you born? And
Well, I was actually born in Coshocton, Ohio. I lived in Dresden for many, many years, home of the Longaberger Basket. My relatives all worked there. That was the big manufacturing place in Dresden. Moved to Newark in my high school years, and then got married and moved up this way. I graduated from Newark High School in 1969, and I've been in Athens, Ohio. I've been in Ashland, Ohio, and then I actually lived in Norton for 7 years or so, in Norton Acres.
On Norton Acres.
Norton Acres, and then we moved here to Wadsworth. We built our home in 1988, so been here ever since. I'm a tech aide at the high school. I work in the library, the computer labs, the copy center, and the drama department. And what else? I guess that's about it.
How long have you been there?
Oh, 24 years.
24 years, 23 and 24 years. Long time, long time. Pretty soon you'll be retiring.
Yes.
Yes, you'll be retiring. Now, the one thing that we're going to try to do today is to identify what you did for the Bicentennial. And the reason we're going to do that is so the people in the year 2064 will be able to identify for themselves what they should be doing so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, we won't be here then.
Well, you never can
Well, we
tell.
won't be teaching at the high school.
won't be
No,
teaching
part
at
of
the
the
high
drama
school.
department.
Now, I'm 84. I won't ask you how old you are, but I just figured it out by when you graduated and so forth. But there's a good possibility that you could be here for the 50th.
Yep.
I plan to be here. I'm 84 years old now. And if I live 50 more years, I'll be 134. I just beginning life.
Spring
Sure.
chicken.
So
Sure.
I'm not really concerned about passing away before then. The thing we're going to try to do here then is to go through the details of what you had to do to produce these kids. Well, they aren't kids; they're young adults now. To do the phenomenal job they did, and tell us what they did. First and foremost, who contacted you, and when did you get the idea, or did you get the idea that you were going to do something, or did someone come up and say, we would like to have you do so? Tell us what it is that you did.
I think we received an email somewhere along the line.
I think it was Pam Douglas.
Pam
Okay.
Douglas.
That originally started the whole ball rolling with us.
Something about having students downtown in costumes. And then that snowballed into having them actually portray characters from Wadsworth history. From there, we worked then with Roger Havens to get some of the historical information from the books that had been put together previously and select individuals that we would want to represent. So he suggested a group of names.
Can you remember some of them?
Oh geez. I can remember one had to do with the newspaper, one had to do with, I can't remember the names.
I can't either.
No, you're stumping me on
Yes,
that one.
we're stumped.
Yeah,
Close enough.
yeah. well,
That's close
Yeah.
enough for government
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So then we told the kids in the drama department, said, hey, we have this opportunity. If you're interested and if you're available, let me know. And so we had a small group of individuals, so we tried to match up, well, how many girls do we have and how many guys do we have and which ones might work, together.
Yeah, some we had to do like the spouse because we didn't have enough boys because a lot of the former were men and we didn't have enough men, so we had to go with the spouse, and that worked out really well.
You didn't have enough men. Was it the men only
Well, yeah.
were the ones who did the work?
Yes.
As a matter of
Except
fact,
for the newspaper, that was a female.
That's right, exactly.
And there were a couple.
And the library.
The librarian.
Librarian.
Right.
There were a couple.
First librarian, she was
Right.
a stern person.
Ella Everhard.
Ella, I'm
Well,
the one who donated the Ella.
the
Okay.
original.
Right.
I thought you meant the first librarian we had.
No, but I think the one
Mrs.
we portrayed
Woodford.
was Ella
Yeah,
Everhard.
that's right.
Okay,
That's
one
she's
name.
a good person. The see, you just said something. I was going to say something
Oh, sorry.
concerning that. But anyway, we'll come right
The
back
men.
to it.
Okay.
We're talking
As soon
about
as I remember what it
Yeah.
is. You have to pardon the people who reach this age. We can sometimes remember what we
Right.
did 75 years ago and can't remember
Right.
whether I'm talking to a man or a woman right now. You mentioned, I know what it was. You mentioned a word, drama department. Tell us about the drama department. I mean, do we have a drama department?
We
in the
do
city
have
of-
quite a large drama
and
department.
What do we do? What do we do with the drama department?
Well, at the present time, between the middle school and the high school, we put on six, 4 at the high school, 2 at the middle school, 6 full productions a year between the middle school and the high school. At the high school, at both schools, we do a musical. So there's 2 musicals a year. There's usually a serious drama. There's a family show, and there's usually a comedy or maybe a musical review. We switch things off back and forth. So 6 full productions a year. The reason we do that is we have a lot of kids that want to be involved. So one of our kind of unwritten rules is the reason we have 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring is you can't be in both because there's so many kids that want to be involved and that are talented. We need to offer as many opportunities as we can.
That is really remarkable that there are so many kids who, and how did that happen?
A lot of hard work.
Yes.
A lot of hard
hours.
work.
How did that happen? Tell us how that happened. Who made it happen?
Well, before us, it was Bob Schoonover and Patty Haskins and, of course, still Linda McNamara. But I think one of our strengths is the longevity. Bob and Linda and Patty and Debbie and I have been in it for so many years that we've built quite,
A repertoire.
Yeah, and I don't want to say a legacy, but expectations, a set of expectations
legacy is a good word. Sure.
that you know, it's not just, oh, well, this person's going to put on a show and this person's going to put on a show, but it's a full season. It's a department that, you know, we talk about the talents of our kids and what we can do to showcase this year's talents.
We work together, which is nice.
Right, what kind of shows have we done recently, and what do we need to do to maybe stretch our students' abilities, push them someplace they haven't gone before, make them think differently than they have before. So it's not, we certainly don't choose the easy shows.
No, as a matter of fact, I was going to mention that. I was in, we used to have, when I was in school, shortly after the Civil War, we used to have a junior class play and a senior class play, period, end of report. And the junior class play was just a step above Rumpelstiltskins, and the senior class play was probably, the biggest thing we probably did was The Man Who Came to Dinner. That was probably one of the most raciest ones, because I think there was one swear word into that.
Oh, yes.
And the swear word was vomit.
Oh my gosh.
On stage?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
on stage. We did that on stage, right. Matter of fact, I was Sheridan Whiteside.
Yeah, very nice.
And we have the distinction, I have the distinction of having ad-libbed throughout that, so that the play lasted 4 solid hours.
Oh my goodness.
The longest play ever in the history of Wadsworth.
I guess.
4 solid hours.
We're not going to try that one.
No, but it should have been 2 hours, but a little bit of ad-libbing there helped out.
Yeah, a lot, yes.
But we had a lot of fun, and we, as a matter of fact, not too long ago, we met with the cast once again, and we still enjoy the fact that we had gone through that. Now, we have gone from that generic kind of thing, almost boring, as the kids would say it today, to something that actually parallels and equals some of the best stage plays around, done by young kids. And we can point to the two of you for doing
thank you.
that.
Thank
and,
you. Thank
and
you.
for Linda McNamara with the music, and Brenda
Adley,
Adley
absolutely.
with the piano, and the musicians and so forth and so on. Now, we got these kids, and we said to them, you're going to have to memorize some lines. And then I heard you say that you read some books, or they read some books, or that Roger Havens, the principal of Franklin School, helped you with the historical facts from the books that were written.
Well, all he did was he made photocopies from the pages of the historical books and sent them to me in the inter-school mail, and we matched up actor to character, and we gave them the information, and then we didn't give them a script, we didn't give them lines, we just said, you need to write something up, and off they went. They went to the library to find out more information. Of course, they went online, lots of Googling.
Yes.
And they call people up and tell them.
Yes, and they researched the characters and found out more information on their own. And then they put the scripts together. They were allowed to use note cards. We didn't make them memorize it because time got a little crunched. And then Debbie contacted our local costumer, if you want to talk about that process.
These people are amazing. It's Akron Design and Costume over on Manchester Road, and we use them for all of our productions, pretty much.
That's where I got my
yes.
General Wadsworth suit.
Yep.
Right.
And so, you know, I just call them and say, you know, this is who I need to portray, and what do you have that we can rent? And they came up with great costumes, I think, for the time period. They
did. The costume that I had for General Elijah Wadsworth was blue and red. And the second that I saw that, I said, this can't be. He said, General Wadsworth was not a British person. As a matter of fact, he hated the British. Well, he didn't hate the British, but he was against the British.
Sure.
And it should have been all blue. And can't believe this. I can't believe I fell for it. The lady said, oh, but you look so good in red and blue. And I thought to myself, well, boy, that's the first time anyone said anything like that to me. So I took it. Now, I know fully well she didn't have a blue one.
Oh.
And so she said, "You look so good in red and blue."
Yeah, they didn't build them specifically
And
for
I
us.
walked
It's
out
just
of the
what we
door. I
had.
walked out
Yeah.
of the door, and actually we had a lot of compliments on the fact that it was red and blue, but it was not historically accurate.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Now, the reason I'm saying that is that I probably was the only person who was not historically accurate. I listened to those people who are on the streets doing this, and I know fully well that they were historically accurate because the books from which they read or did some of the research were the ones that I wrote.
Yes.
And so those were historic, as a matter of fact, word per word in many, many cases. And they did their own research and they found some other kinds of things.
And what was interesting is while they were performing on in the square the one evening, and then when we went down to the cemetery another time, family members from those, because we had so many people in town, taught them more information. And I think
That's
it was
right.
an ongoing learning experience for the kids too, because they would come to us later and say, "Do you know what I found out about me?" Of course, we were now me. We weren't my person or my character. "Do you know what else I found out about me?" And then the next week, they were telling their friends. As they finished up with the Bicentennial events, you could hear them talk about their characters, and they really did appreciate the whole experience.
That happened specifically with Myra Johnson, the person who, Dr. Myra Johnson, she was one of the persons who was portrayed. And she had, let's see if we can put this very carefully, a vituperous tongue. And the vituperous tongue sometimes got out of control. She was very headstrong, very headstrong. And the person who was portraying that, Dr. Myra Johnson, was, I can't think of her name right now, I knew it
Yeah,
at
I
the
don't
time.
remember which one.
But was a female, obviously, because she was the only female position we had in Wadsworth for many, many years. And Dr. Myra Johnson's vocabulary was probably not what should be on the streets, sometimes. I mean, sometimes she was fine, very professional, very good doctor, but stern, and I'll tell you a little story about her in a couple seconds if I have time. But that person was told by many of Dr. Myra Johnson's patients of how she addressed people. And so that girl said, "A doctor said that and talked that way," and she did. She was very strong. You mentioned costumes. We're talking here 200 years ago. However, the costumes were not 200 years ago because these people who were portrayed, most of the ones who were portrayed, were within the past, what, 50 to 75 to 100 years, something like that, maybe, well, about 100 years. So we had the costumes that were indigenous to the periods of about 100 years ago. We had no one that I remember who was from the very, very original colony.
We did, let's see, what was the name of the girl that got lost in the woods?
Oh, yes, you did, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's
Right,
right. Yeah.
we had her mother.
Her mother.
We portrayed the mother.
The mother, right.
And I
Right.
believe there was another one too. Jared played him. Another one of the more frontier type characters, if I remember his costume correctly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Someone
think who
else
that
from
be.
earlier in the time period.
So we did have some frontier people as well.
Yeah,
Right.
we have
Maybe I
couple.
didn't see those part. I didn't see all of them
Right,
because
right.
I was busy trying
Yeah,
to
but
do what people.
yeah, we tried to cover, you know, different time periods within the history, yet nothing too recent. So it would allow for a little bit deeper understanding of the Bicentennial.
Right. Well, the Bicentennial has come and gone, but we're going to try to reproduce it here for the people in 2064. What I was going to say a little while ago that I forgot, and then I forgot that I forgot, but now I remembered it, and that is, I have made arrangements with the present administration, with Mayor Labaugh, to see if somehow, some way or another, we can have the library be the custodian of all of these films that we're making. We're making 21 films of all of the things that happened during the Bicentennial, so that the people who are going to be planning the 250th anniversary in 2064 will be able to have the benefit of these films
good.
or these portrayals. We're hoping that the library will take the responsibility for being the keeper of these things to be released in 2061, because it was not going to do anybody any good to plan in 2064.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we're hoping that when we somebody opens these or views these in 2061, that they'll understand and know that one of the things that we can do is to take those 12 or 15 people. Did you have 12 or 15?
Something like that.
12 or 15 people. They don't have to do any of the research on that. It's already done. They'll have to go from 2014 to 2064, 61 it is, probably 2061. And then that's all the research they'll have to do.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, between now and then, probably a lot of things will happen. As a matter of fact, throughout this program today, we're going to be doing something that we've done for all the other programs, that we're going to identify where they stood, not necessarily in front of, say, for instance, the Strand Theater,
Right.
because the Strand Theater may not be here at that time. We're going to be saying from the middle of the square, about 300 feet east on the south side of the park.
Okay.
So we'll have to do that. And we're going to, so in a couple of minutes when we start identifying where these people are or were, we're going to do that. Someone said, well, if you say it's at the high school, that's not going to change. Dear hearts,
Oh.
that did change, because when we had the 150th anniversary, we had a new high school. And they probably said at that time, well, that's not going to change. Now that school's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Nope.
And for the 125th, when I first became involved in 1939, our high school is where the Central Intermediate School is now. As a matter of fact, that was kindergarten through 12th grade. And there were only 300 people in the entire school.
Wow.
300. My locker was opposite the second grade classroom. So every day
Our classes, I mean, our class sizes are bigger than that now.
Yeah.
of
I
course
mean, what
they
we
are.
just graduated, 356, I believe, something
we
like
had
that.
we had a little over 300 people in the entire building. So that, you know, everything's going to change. I want to get back to something that you had said just a little while ago, Debbie. You say that you are an aide in helping with the theater and library and so forth. Now, talk about that library just for a second, because I'm going to make a point of what the library is today as compared to what it was for the 125th anniversary, the 150th anniversary, and the 175th anniversary. And then the people in 2061 or 64 can say, wow, all they had were, you know, the scratch
Yeah,
pads.
because we don't even
Yeah.
call it a library anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell us what it was. Tell us what it is right now.
What it is right now, it's more a media center. We do have books, but it's more computer based.
Tell us how that works, and I'll supplant it with some other information in a couple seconds.
Well,
Describe it.
describe the media center.
Yes.
We have some shelves of books. We probably have, it doesn't seem like it, we probably have 10,000 books still. But we had more at the old building, and we had to pare down, plus a lot of them were not in very good shape anyway, so they went to the library for the book sales. But we have some books in there, not used too often. It's mostly all computer stuff.
In other words, you have books on computers.
Not
I
necessarily.
would say the students use the computers to access text
Yes.
rather than actually the paper
Looking
books
at the book.
anymore.
1939. The library was on a bookshelf at the back of 301, which was the big study hall. It was two rooms with the partition cut out. And they were not used because some of the books, and I remember them because I was there. Some of the books were 1800s.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now they're relics,
Yeah.
but they were of no value whatsoever. Science books and history books, which did not even come close to what we needed at the time, were in there. Then, as you say, little by little, and the old building, when you talk about the old building,
Wow.
it was
It's the old new building.
Yeah.
the old new building. It went up to probably how many volumes?
Oh, I don't even remember.
I'll bet it's 25 or 30,000
Yeah,
volumes.
probably. Probably. We got rid of quite a few books.
In 1939, it was fewer than 100 volumes.
Oh.
And they were of no value whatsoever. The only thing that was of any value, of course, would be in the encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah.
And even those were old. So they didn't really have. And the reason that they wanted to do this was that they didn't want the kids to go, the students to go to the library, because that's the city library, but Ella Everhard donated in 1925. She donated the Leiter House. Dr. Leiter owned the house, and she bought it, and then she donated it for the library. But in 1925, it had one room of books and one room of Indian artifacts, and the room of books was probably as big as a fairly good-sized living room. And I doubt seriously if they had 20,000. I'm sure that, no, I'm sure 10,000 volumes. And they didn't want the kids going over there all the time, so they had their own library at the high school, and it was next to nothing. Now,
Well, and now the library loves it when the kids come in, because
of course,
you know
yeah.
things have completely changed.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
we have
Yes.
a brand new library, and we have, I don't know how many volumes they have, but I'm sure that it's way beyond anything we expected. You're very humble, Pam, in saying that the kids did this all by themselves. That ain't true. That ain't true. We know that. We know that. Now, you're going to deny this. I'm going to tell you right before you
Okay.
open your mouth, you're going to deny it.
Okay.
Didn't you have to kind of hand pick who was going to do what?
I would say we chose carefully to make sure that the students could have the training, have had the background. We could trust them to take on the task, to represent the city and the school.
Debbie, down in Coshocton. Down in Coshocton.
Yeah.
How would you say we probably selected carefully? How do you say that down in Coshocton? We handpicked.
We handpicked.
That's right. We handpicked these people.
We also tried to match the people with who we thought they would portray. You know, and I think we did a good job on a couple of them, because we thought they were...
Right. We have girls that play more matronly roles. So we certainly weren't going to find a young teenager character for them to portray. We put them in a more of a motherly role. And in fact, I think one was, oh gosh, I'm going to forget names.
know, I'm so sorry.
But it was one of the times where we had to switch things around and have her play the spouse of someone, and then also she talked about her son and what he did as well. And then, you know, we have a couple boys that have a little bit more, a little more spunk in their character. So we wanted to make sure we matched them up with the type of character that they would portray.
So that's what you did.
Yeah, and I also want to mention too, thanks to Pam and her son Spencer
Oh.
for being the boy with the leaky boot. He portrayed
The Civil War
the
soldier.
Civil War soldier, and I thought that was very, very good.
As a matter of fact, I saw him. That's your son? Did not realize that.
Yes.
Did not realize that. I was going to comment on him, as a matter of fact, because I stood right next to him, and he was in character all of the time. Well, probably now I know why. His mother probably has him in character
Well,
at home all the time.
he's technically not an actor. He's more of a techie.
He's a techie?
Yeah.
Did
so,
a beautiful job.
Yes,
Did a beautiful
yes,
job.
Yes.
The boy with the leaky boot, we're going to have to identify what we're talking about here. The boy with the leaky boot. Way back after the first, or the during after the Civil War, sometime somewhere close to about 1900 to 5 to 10, somewhere in that area, a group of ladies got together and they wanted to do something about about commemorating the Civil War. So they got this boy with a leaky boot. Now, the boy with the leaky boot is not indigenous to Wadsworth. No. There are many of them all throughout the world, and the reason for that is that there was a story, and it could well be true, but probably isn't. But nonetheless, it
makes a great story.
A good story.
Makes a great story. That this boy had no way to carry water to the soldiers, and he had a boot. And the boot leaked, and he would carry this water, would lose most of the water before he got there. But the soldiers were so desirous of having some water that they didn't care, they just drank it. Now, that statue, that commemorative statue, actually was displayed in the North Park. Now, the North Park is on High Street. If you take the center of the square going north, it was directly north of the square. And it stayed there for years and years and years. As a small child going to school, this is probably about 80 years ago, going to school, I would go through that by it every single day. And there was no water coming out, and the boy was holding something up like this, but the boot wasn't there. I mean, the boot had been taken away, someone took the boot away. This was during the Depression, where we had absolutely nothing to eat. We had something to eat, but very, very little.
Right.
We had no material goods whatsoever. The Great Depression was devastating to all of us. Well, as far as I was concerned, that boy was begging for food. And to me, who probably was not begging for food, but not very far from it, always thought that that boy was begging for food. And every morning, I had a little pit in my stomach because that boy didn't have any food.
Oh.
It wasn't until many, many years later I realized fully, well, then I'm ahead of the story. In 1942, then we, quote, I'm going to put this in quotation marks, gave it to the war effort so they could smelt it down and to use it for, I don't know,
whatever,
whatever,
right.
for the war effort. I don't know if that happened, but that's what the story is. When we start talking about it again, realize fully well that had nothing to do with this boy looking for food, and that was, so I was an older man before I realized fully well the boy with the leaky boot. Now, we got onto that subject because your son was the boy with the leaky boot.
Well, was the soldier, was the Civil War soldier.
Okay,
right.
Civil War
so when
soldier.
They dedicated the statue, the new statue, behind the gazebo now, they, again, somebody called and said...
Behind the gazebo was where?
In the center of the town? Or where it was previously?
No, I mean, where is it today? Where is it today?
Oh, it's at the intersection of what, High and Broad?
Broad,
right.
Okay,
Yes.
and it's the East Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words, it's immediately east of the center of town.
Okay.
The center of town, immediately east of the center of town.
Right.
So that's where the gazebo is. And incidentally, we'll say, well, that gazebo will always be there.
Yeah.
This is the third gazebo since Wadsworth was born.
Oh.
The first one was wooden. The second one was stone. And they had to carry the second one was stone. As a matter of fact, it was stone until 1975. And then the third one.
Same location?
Same,
Okay.
well, fairly close.
Okay.
Fairly close. In the same general location,
Okay.
but not exactly in that location. So it may not be there. But we want to make sure that the boy with the leaky boot is, because we have now made it into a national monument.
Oh, nice.
So that it is a memorial of the war effort, and therefore no one's going to be able to sell that, some years from now, and let's say for whatever war effort. Of course, who knows what can change between now and then.
Well, 50 years from now, when they run across a similar situation and they find out that all of their male actors are booked that weekend, never rule out your techies.
Oh, right.
Because, Debbie's like, can Spence do it? And I'm like, okay, which is my son. So I went to Spencer and I begged and pleaded and asked him, and he said yes. And then he did such a great job at the dedication that they asked him to go ahead and revive the character for the Bicentennial weekend as well.
Now, was he the one there this week, this Memorial Day when they did it again?
No.
No,
No.
okay. You probably didn't do it. Now, you just reminded me of something that we should have done at the very beginning. You forgot to tell us who your family members are. So you have a son we know of now, and his name is Spencer.
Is Spencer.
And Spencer is how old?
Spencer is 17. He's a junior in high school.
Anybody else? Does Spencer have any siblings?
Yes, I have a daughter, Rebecca,
and she
who is 19 and just graduated this last year, and my husband, Paul.
Paul. And that takes care of that family.
That's the family.
How about yours, Debbie?
My husband, Gary, and I have a son, Tim, and a daughter, Lindsay, and I have 5 granddaughters.
5 granddaughters. Now, if you name them, you better make sure that you get them all, because trouble if you don't. You want to name them? Because they will be there 50 years
Yes,
from now.
that's true.
And they will forever remember their grandmother forgot this name or that name. So 5 of them.
Well, my son, Tim, and daughter-in-law, Carrie, have Caitlin and Madeline.
Okay, that's 2.
And then my daughter, Lindsay, and her husband, Mike, have
Mike what?
Mike James.
James.
And they have Alexis.
Alexis, 3.
And then twins, Hannah and Abigail.
That's 5. Okay, we got them all.
I got them all.
Got them all.
One of the persons whom I interviewed not too terribly long ago said, if you were going to ask me all of these tough questions, I would have boned up on them.
Oh.
Because people will forget the names. And I can't begin to tell you how we've done this. Well, actually, Wadsworth History on Film has, 350, 375 episodes. And I can't begin to tell you how many people have asked us to have to go back to bring them, because they would forget one person or the other. Yeah. That was just a little abruptness here, because I had forgotten to do that earlier. But you know, Debbie, a moment ago when you were talking about the media center, let's describe what a media center is, because when I was doing my, shall we say, preparatory work to teaching some 60 plus years ago, a media center had a completely different meaning than it does today. So tell us what a media center is today, so that we can have some kind of a comparison between today's and
years ago. Well, there's actually 4 rooms. The biggest room houses the library part of it, and then we have a few computers in there, and then we have 2 computer labs, and I think in total we have right around 80 computers in the media center. And the classes come and reserve a room, and they can do research or type or whatever they need to do in those media rooms.
Now, while we're on that one, so that 50 years from now, people can either chuckle and
Yeah, they're all desktop computers
Yes,
right now. I'm sure they'll be gone by then.
with the big screens.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big.
and we'll have something like that.
Yeah.
But how do you protect the innocent minds of high school kids, if there is such a thing? How do you protect them from some of the irreverent kinds of things that could be on computers now, today? And then I'll give an indication of how we used to do it years ago, and well, not too many years ago, because computers did not become into their own until about 1985, and then 50 years from now, how they will chuckle at all these kinds of things.
Well, our technology department has some blocks on some things, but of course the kids know how to get around everything. It's basically teacher and the tech aide's job to kind of keep an eye.
To monitor, sure.
We had a much, when this first came out, we had a much more effective way of doing it. Anytime that the student went to a, what's the word, site, to a site that was not appropriate, there was a whistle that blew from his computer, his or her computer.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And it was very loud, and it would not stop until the professor would go and turn it off.
Oh my gosh.
And somehow, a few years later, that was, I think, was either stopped for practical reasons, or there was some kind of a ruling made that this was embarrassing to kids and so forth and so on. But it worked, and it worked very well.
Sure. I'm sure.
And as a matter of fact, if you put anything, say for instance, if you were to type in a word that was not appropriate, this thing would blow up as well.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that it was a puritanical nun who made the decision about which words should or should not be on the
Yeah, filters are very interesting.
Yes.
You know, there'll be sites that are just absolutely appropriate for students to go to, but because it might have, who knows why, all of a sudden you can't get on the site, and then the kids can't finish their research.
That's right.
And, it's very hit or miss.
Hit or miss.
But now we also have at the high school bring your own device, where students can bring in their own laptops, and using the connectivity through the high school, they're still somewhat controlled with the filter,
Right.
but with data packages on cell phones now,
You can't
most
control.
high schoolers
Yeah.
don't even go through the district Wi-Fi. They just pay their data bill.
And that's right.
And
They do it that way.
sure.
Yeah.
The reason
You
I'm
know
bringing
kids,
up all
they'll
of
find a
these,
way through.
the reason I'm bringing up all of these kinds of situations is that I'd like to have you make some kind of a statement about how you would be able to, say for instance, 50 years from now, they'll think to themselves, why didn't they think of that?
Yeah. Yes.
To be able to project how you think that you would be able to use the technology in something like the portrayals of these people. Now, I'm going to go way, way, way out on something that I don't even know what I'm talking about because I'm not a computer person. But say, for instance, that you would be able to put this on your little telephone, cell phone, and some way or another that would communicate to your brain silently, and your brain, then your mouth would speak.
Well,
Is that a possibility?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have the Google glasses right now that can project the images, and then the person you're talking to doesn't see it, but you see the information, and then you can be reading right from the glasses.
So in other words, you would not have to memorize anything.
Well, absolutely.
You can go on stage
Right.
2 days after you get your part,
And
and
Right.
the only thing that you have to know is what to wear.
if you
Yeah.
only want them to read, but if you want
Right.
them to act,
Oh,
that's
there you
something
go.
different.
Okay, we want them to act. Pam, you have been here for 23 years. Give the people in 2014 or 2064. Give the people in 2064 some kind of thought of where you think the portrayal of drama will go.
Well, theater is a way to experience life. It's a way for people to understand, have apathy or empathy for other characters, other people's situations. So I really hope theater, live theater, never goes away, because there's nothing like the experience of live theater. I think as far as a school district, supporting, I mean, we're extremely well supported, and I hope Wadsworth continues doing that, because I think the opportunities that it offers for our students, not only with literature, by the way, in 2000, what year was this going to be open?
64.
64.
Well, 61 we opened it.
Our town is still a good production. We've done it. We did it again this year and tied it right in with the Bicentennial. We took pictures from historical pictures, and rather than Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, we used pictures from Wadsworth, Ohio, from the same time period as our town, and it worked just fine. We did some projection, which was new technology that we've tried in our theater. You know, classic literature is still appreciated on the stage, whether it's Shakespeare or Thornton Wilder, and new productions. That's the other thing we try to do, is bring as many new pieces to the stage as we can. We're one of the first schools in the area to be able to do Addams Family, the musical, which will have been done 3 million times by the time this is opened again. But it was brand new, and we were able to bring that to the stage, and the community loved it. So
that bit of history is going to be extremely important 50 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Just as it is that our history from the year 1814,
Mm-hmm.
when Wadsworth was founded,
Mm-hmm.
I guess we call it that. It's always been, I mean, this land has always been here, but someone finally stepped on the land, and we now call it Wadsworth. They had what were called literaries, and the literaries were exactly what you're talking about there. And what they did was to bring in the historical people through the eyes of a small child. Well, not necessarily a small child, because some of these were only in the second or third year of their school, but they were 15, 16, 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't have the type of education we have today. And we have a lot of historical evidence to support the fact that these people, the students, portrayed their historical ancestors. Now, the only reason that we know fully well that General Wadsworth, not the only reason, probably because somebody probably figured out another reason, but the quickest way that we know that General Elijah Wadsworth's grandfather was the person who hid the charter oak in the charter oak was that one of the very first things that was produced in our Wadsworth School, in what they called the South School, and then we had the North School. The South School was opposite Hartman Road, where Broad Street and Hartman Road intersect at this time. And it was only 20 feet long and 16 feet wide, and it was overgrown in the first year. So they moved to the other end of what would now be Hartman Road, but it wasn't Hartman Road at that time. It wasn't even a road, but at the other end where it's 261 and Hartman Road, and they had that was called the North School. In the North School, they actually had the portrayal of General Elijah Wadsworth's grandfather, Joseph Wadsworth, who was that person. And we have that as our immediate knowledge. Now, obviously, yes, historians knew this, and the people in Connecticut knew this, and people in Hartford knew this, and I'm sure the people in England knew this, and so forth. But we didn't have that information in 1814. But that's how we found out. So when you say, Pam, that life experience through the well, shall we say, through the theater, should never change. It probably never will.
yeah, I hope not.
So that's one thing that has remained constant from 1814 to 2014. And let's say then, Pam, come on people, shake your finger at them and say, you better do that, keep that thing alive.
Keep this alive.
Yeah.
Keep it alive.
In 2064.
Yeah.
Going to go right back to Debbie one more time on this. Well, probably more times than one, but one more time. And one of the things that I was trying to get you to say about the media center, what changed in terms of the attitude to wanting that book which you would hold close to your heart and be able to smell and to look at and pick up and reread and so forth? What changed in the attitudes of students? And what is your prediction that's going to change in 2064?
Well, I think a lot of the change is they feel it's quicker to look it up online. It's quicker to go to a website than to look through a book. That's one of the things. The second thing...
Expediency, that's
yes,
one thing. Okay,
yeah.
let's say expediency.
Another thing is maybe a little bit budget-wise, it's hard to keep updated volumes.
Tell me. Right. As a matter of fact, right now, in the year 2014, the cheapest elementary textbook is over $50 a piece. That's a lot of money. When I was in school, some 80 years ago, starting 80 years ago, the most expensive book was in the matter of pennies. Big difference, okay? Okay.
So,
we have economy. We
yeah.
have expediency, we have economy. What else?
I think technology really is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are still reading. They're still reading.
Yeah.
They're just reading in a different form. Many of my high school students have tablets. You know, we used to have 2 Nooks in our house. We don't have Nooks anymore, but we have iPads and tablets. And that's where our reading happens. It's not, we're still reading the novels, but rather than on paper, they're digital.
Screen.
Yes.
Right.
Well, we still have people writing, but we don't have anybody writing in cursive anymore.
I hear that's coming back in a
Yes.
few
They better come
districts.
back.
That's what we heard.
It better come back. It
Yep.
better come back. Right?
Yeah, it'd be make
I have a grandson.
reading, writing much easier.
I have a grandson who is a senior, is a sophomore in the New York school, one of the very best of the New York schools, the best district of New York schools in Westchester County, and he cannot read cursive because he's never had cursive.
Right.
Now, that's something that we need to identify as being part of our culture here in the year 2014, because it's true. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in 2064,
Right.
but we're going to be pointing the finger once again and say, well, maybe better you get some cursive, because signing your name is something. And then,
Right.
well, we shouldn't go into this, but I'm hoping that I live long enough so that I can reteach people how to hold a pencil instead of the way they hold. They hold like they hold as if they're holding a dagger in so many ways. You know, we have a few minutes left here. I'd like to be able to have you tell us some of the things that were problematic when you tried to get the people to become certain people.
Well, I would say the biggest obstacle was just time.
Right.
Our kids are involved in a lot of things, so lining up students who can, who have the time to be able to do the work that was necessary to create the character, and then just to be there on the dates that they needed to be there, and to be able to get them together to measure for costumes and pick up the costumes. Just that organization probably
Logistics,
was
in other words.
right. Other than that, like I said, the students, we picked good students.
Oh, really? I
We
thought you
picked
said,
good
I thought
students.
you said they did all this. I thought you said they did all this all of their own.
Well, we
And
picked
that
kids
you
that we
did not-
knew
that you
that
did
we
not
knew could do it.
that you
all right.
not handpicked.
Well,
then how
we're
about
selective.
how about reacting to this one in the same vein? What about the fact that so many of our kids now use a language which is which many years ago was not used? I mean, a different type of approach. For instance, the excessive use of the word "like," the excessive use of the word
Really.
and "hi" or "hey" instead of "hi," and all those kinds of things. Did you have any difficulty in getting them to reorient their language so they sounded like they were 100 years old instead of?
No, they took their role very seriously. They wanted to portray these people honestly, and they wanted to be proud of the job that they were doing. That they, you know, if anything, keep involving our youth in these type of activities. I think that was probably the best thing to say, you know, this isn't just a bunch of adults getting together to do this. It's the whole town, and you need to involve everybody in the planning and the preparation and the production as well, if you want the town to be proud of what the weekend or week or year becomes.
Right. Now, Debbie, either you or Pam, I don't know which one said this, but they said that they went back after a couple days or so, or a week, and they were telling other kids what what they were told. Did you feel that these people maintained their character in pectora, in other words, in their hearts? Did they maintain their character in pectora, even though they were no longer that person?
I think they were just proud to have played that person.
Yeah.
They took, and I can't remember which character it was, but I just remember one of the girls weeks afterwards, or even into the fall, I think when we were preparing for Our Town and we were talking about the experience, and she would say, oh, well, yeah, I No, I mean the character that I was playing. That was where my family was. No, well, not my family, but my character's
Yeah,
family.
Right, right.
They really took ownership
In other
of the
words,
experience.
Yeah.
they became that person, and they'll probably, in their own life, and you know, as time goes on, they'll probably, it'll dissipate a bit, but I'll be willing to wager that they will probably remember that as being almost as if it were attached to them.
Oh, yeah.
And
I agree.
I think it was you who made a statement close to that a little while ago, and I wanted to pick up on that, but then I think I jumped in.
Sorry.
No, that's
You told me to
fine.
do all the talking.
I know I did.
That's fine. That's no problem. We have only a couple of minutes left, and could you tell us what you would recommend to the people in 2061 if they are open it before their 2064 250th anniversary? To what are the kinds of things that you would recommend to them to do? First and foremost, pick out the right people. But then, what else?
I would recommend getting more kids involved. Make it a bigger deal.
Okay.
Start a little earlier in the planning, and involve more kids, because I think the kids really enjoyed doing it. And I know there were students afterwards that did say, "Oh, I really wish I was available. I could have done that.
Yeah.
That looked like a lot of fun."
I would have liked to have done that.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because so many of us were so old that we in one case when we had the picnic, I had to circulate as General Elijah Wadsworth, and I walked across Memorial Park three times rather, and it's a mile each way. And let me tell you, for 84 years old, it is not easy to walk that. Those
No.
kids could have sprinted back and forth 50,000 times and no one would have known the difference. Debbie, what do you think? Well, what would you advise? You have.
Well, I kind of agree with Pam. I think have pride in Wadsworth and just get people involved, and I think that you'll reap the rewards.
These people were probably not natives of Wadsworth, I suspect. Many of them probably were not natives of Wadsworth. Their parents weren't released.
A couple of them, you know, weren't connected to the original families, but several generations.
Right, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because this is a nice way to get people who are new to Wadsworth to know what Wadsworth is.
Correct.
People, we have come to the end of the program. Thank you very, very much for sharing something which was unique. The first time in the 200 years of Wadsworth has been here that we've had our kids go out there and portray some of the old-time people. Again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.